So hello everybody and welcome. I'm really excited to be talking to Mairi Stone today. So hi Mairi.
Hi. Hi Sharon.
And Mairi, you have one of the most amazing stories of transformation. So would you today be able to share just some of your experiences with how matrix reimprinting has changed your life? And specifically about, what happened in your childhood that actually needed changing.
Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, it's a bit of a long story, Sharon, so I shall try and condense it. Essentially, what happened to me was I was brought up in an alcoholic family with a mother with mental health issues, which included having at least 2 breakdowns that I can vaguely remember. And I didn't know that any of that was a problem for quite a long time. It just was my family. And it wasn't until I had a breakdown in my mid-20s that I sort of knew things weren't really okay. I thought it was because I was under so much stress. I was sitting accountancy exams, and I did in that previous life qualify as an accountant. And I ended up seeing a clinical psychologist for 18 months and somehow managed to never get to the topic of my dad being an alcoholic.
Right.
I don't know what we talked about, but I stopped crying as much and I managed to carry on functioning, but not well. And I think probably about a year after that, I actually got introduced to a 12-step support program for people who have been affected by somebody else's drinking. And I carried on in that really until about 6 years ago. And it was massively helpful for me, and it helped me to start to understand what had happened to me and to come out of the denial about the impact of that type of childhood and its particular flavour and how it affected me. So, yeah, up until around about 6 years ago, I was doing a lot of work on myself. I mean, a lot. I trained as a psychodynamic counsellor. I trained in inner child work. I trained as a life coach. All things because those things helped me. And I worked really hard at trying to feel better, because the truth was most of the time I actually found it really difficult to live. I just couldn't really make sense of this thing called life. It was painful for me.
Yeah.
And what happened 6.5 years ago was I ended up diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and that was a massive change point.
Right.
That had to happen, actually. I now see. I wish it had happened sooner. No. Anyway, because what chronic fatigue to me has just been a collection of symptoms. It's a name that describes a particular set of symptoms that happened to me, and my understanding is my body eventually brought me to a complete standstill because I wasn't listening, or maybe I wasn't able to listen, but I had to have that kind of thing happen to me to actually completely stop me, because I didn't stop. I never stopped. I was on the go all the time, pushing, doing. And to be brought to actual crashing standstill like that made me face myself, because there was nowhere else to go.
That is one of the common things that I hear all the time when people have had ME, chronic fatigue, all of those autoimmune conditions, is they do literally work themselves to the ground, but also put everybody else before themselves.
Yeah. Well, I had some really powerful patterns running and beliefs. And although I had some idea about beliefs, obviously, from some of the stuff I'd done before, my understanding now is that I was very good at describing my neurosis, if you like. I could tell you a lot of what was wrong with me, what I struggled with, a lot of what had happened to me. But essentially, the beliefs that I had that were limiting me were still running. They hadn't changed.
Right.
And a lot of the time what I was doing was I was trying to override them, because I knew I should be behaving differently because of all the stuff that I knew and I read and I'd understood. I thought I should be in a better place than I actually was. And now, because of EFT and Matrix, I understand that until I had actually done something about those beliefs and what formed them and gone back and released that, they were going to carry on running the show.
Are there any beliefs that you can share with us that you actually can name where those went back to? Is there any specific stories that you have?
Yeah. I had a very interesting session with a practitioner that I worked with for quite a long time, and I, just doing the tapping, I suddenly had like a bolt of electricity go through me. It was the most extraordinary thing. I couldn't breathe properly, and I got just a little bit of a memory, and it was from when I was very little. It was about 4, and I was doing something to my baby brother. I'm not sure what I was doing. I might have been trying to pick him up. Maybe I was trying to play with him. Maybe I was poking him. But he was a very new baby in a carry cot. And my mum, not surprisingly, with a new baby, went mad at me. And in that moment, I formed a belief that I have done something wrong. I don't know what it is. And I don't know how to make it better. My mum doesn't like me. So it's like this sort of bomb went off of these beliefs. And I carried that all that time till I was about 50, that I've done something wrong. And really, that was one of the most damaging beliefs for me, was that I've done something wrong. I am wrong. It became I am wrong. What I say is wrong. What I do is wrong. What I think is wrong. And so that meant that I lived in a way that I was on high red alert all the time, trying to get it right, trying to figure it out all the time. Hence the number of books I read, the courses I went on, all the time out there trying to figure it out. I thought the answer was out there somewhere, and I was trying to find that answer. And when I went back to that, the forming of that belief, it was just extraordinary, because I was like, oh no, I've kind of held my mum to account all these years. Like, what did she do? What have I done? Why is she not nice to me? And that's been the story. My mum doesn't like me. She's not nice to me. She likes my sisters, but she doesn't like me. And in that moment, I realized, oh, I formed that belief. And I don't mean that in a blaming way, because I understand now that's what we do, because I had to try and make sense of a situation, and I was only 4.
Yes.
So of course I did it in a way that doesn't make sense to an adult now. And yeah, that ruled my life for a very long time.
Oh my God. So when you were working with your little 4-year-old self, because in Matrix Reimprinting we imagine going back and actually working with your little 4-year-old self to help her at that time where she made that belief. Now that's like a life-threatening, even though it's only very, very small, but to your little 4-year-old self, that was a life-threatening moment where she could be cast out of the family because she was wrong and she just couldn't process what was going on. So how did you work with her, or what happened in that session?
So I was able to explain to her that there was a new baby, and the mother, in that situation, mothers think about the new baby. Because they're so new and little. So my mum had just reacted, and interestingly, one of my sisters had just done something similar with one of her children. And we'd had a discussion about that. She was going, oh yeah, I screamed at my toddler because her whole focus was on the baby. And so that gave me that insight. That's probably what my mum did. So I was able to explain to my 4-year-old, this isn't about you. This is your mum. And also that my mum was a mum who wasn't coping.
Right.
So that was the third baby that had come along in a very, very short period of time. I was the eldest at 4, and that baby was the third. And, you know, she had an alcoholic husband. So she was a mum who wasn't coping. So all of that little 4-year-old me was like, oh, it's starting to realise this, it's not me. It's something going on with my mum.
Right.
And she's very smart, as are our little echoes, these younger selves. Once they get a bit of information that changes the decision that they made at the time, or makes some more sense of what was going on,
yes.
You can feel the shift in them. And often with my echoes, we're not able to have an amazing, loving, beautiful, wonderful situation with my mother. I've learned in the Matrix that my mum, it isn't really capable of that.
Mm-hmm.
I've had her higher self come and just say, this is the mum you had for the lessons you need to learn. And I accept that now. So what is often really helpful, and it was for this little 4-year-old, is that she gets to go away and draw. And she draws what's going on for her.
Right.
And then usually starts just drawing because that's what she loves to do.
Yeah.
And that takes her to a really peaceful place.
Yeah.
And so I can remember that she was very accepting. It was like, oh, right, it's all about mum. It wasn't about me at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. And, you know, you mentioned about mothers not coping. Mm-hmm. And here you are wanting to specialise working with women who are not coping, because as a mother yourself, you had that experience too.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I was brought up by a mother who did not cope. My mum never coped. She's still not coping today. Unfortunately, she's quite unwell with dementia and Alzheimer's now, so she's gone to a totally not coping place. But she didn't cope. And then when I found myself as a mother, I found it really, really hard to cope. I found it hard to cope becoming a mother because I had to have IVF treatment. I had damaged fallopian tubes. So, of course, that hit all my buttons of there's something wrong with you. You know, you can't do what other people can do. You're not like other people. You're not good enough. So all those were going off when I had to have IVF treatment, but I didn't know it.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, I was very fortunate and I ended up having twins on the first attempt, which I am extremely grateful for. I wouldn't have wanted to have to go through that again. And, but you know, I had twins. So it's hard work having twins, and it's hard work when you've got a lot of beliefs about not being good enough, not getting it right, other people being able to do it better than you. And I had all of that running, and I had to bring myself to other people all the time. So very, very self-critical. So nothing I was ever doing felt like it was good enough. You know, and it's sad because I understand the impact that will have had on my children. You know, so yeah, these things can get carried on, and that is life, I guess. But it's sad because we've had difficulties in our family to deal with, and I know that some of them, it's this generational stuff if it's not healed, you know. And thankfully now I have, and I am being able to change things. But yeah, so for me, being a mum, much as part of I absolutely adored, and you know, it's just such a privilege to see these little beings grow up. I did also find it very, very difficult, and I so wanted to do it differently from what I'd experienced. And so that led me, of course, to read Flipping Parent going, because again, I was looking outside of myself for answers all the time, because I didn't trust that I had it inside me. And I trained to run parenting classes. And, you know, I did do a lot of stuff to help myself. So I was very fortunate. I lived in Brighton at the time, and the Women's Centre there was running a 20-week support group for new mums. Mm-hmm. And I went along to that, and it was a lifesaver for me to have. that space to talk about how difficult I found it, and that to be okay. Because I think in a lot of my life, I found it difficult to admit how difficult I found it being a mother, because I had made such a conscious choice to be a mother.
Yes, and you were scared of getting it wrong.
Yeah, totally scared of getting it wrong and being found out, you know. And, you know, sort of on the back of that is that I'll be rejected, I'll be ridiculed. You know, these are all things, obviously, that happened, but they are the beliefs that were running all the time. And so, yeah, you know, of course, I ended up was very controlling, perfectionist, all those things of trying desperately to get it right, to try and figure out how to get it right. What's the right way to do this? What's the right thing to say, the right thing to do? And yeah, sort of following on from that, prior to my collapse with chronic fatigue, I probably looked to people like I was getting it right. I had what looked like a good life. So lovely children, lovely husband, lovely house, lovely holidays, all that stuff, little business running. And but inside, I didn't feel good. All the time I was trying to figure it out. I kind of, yeah, I suppose like mental lists of things that meant that I was living a good life. All of that was spurred on, like when I did life coaching, and I set a business up at that point in time called Live a Life You Love. It makes me laugh now, because I actually stopped it in the end because I realized I was not living a life I loved. So I applied some of it to myself, and I worked out, you know, so a life I love should look like this. So it's all shoulds. It should be like this. I should be doing this. These things should be happening. And so, yeah, you know, I was going out running, so I could tick the box that I was taking exercise, going to a yoga class, you know, so it all looked great, but I still felt crap inside, you know, and I wasn't well. I hadn't been well for years. And I now know it's classic, that going out running, because I felt so unfit. It's because I wasn't well. I was about to collapse with chronic fatigue. And what I was doing was just driving myself even harder.
Yeah, you're driving yourself even harder into illness and collapse. So what would you say the biggest gift was from having chronic fatigue? What did you learn from it?
Gosh, I've learned so many things. I think the biggest gift was actually learning EFT and Matrix, because what I absolutely love about them is we can do them for ourselves. I think that is such a gift in the world, that because prior to that I'd always had to wait till the next meeting, you know, support group, or wait until my next therapy appointment, hanging on sometimes, feeling quite desperate for the need to talk to somebody. And now that you know, I've got this thing literally at my fingertips, and I love that, and I love being able to share that with clients. You are not on your own anymore. You can help yourself. And the fact that when I first got introduced to EFT, hearing try it on anything, so I did try it on anything and everything, all the time. I was just looking yesterday. I've got I keep a journal, so I've got all these notebooks from all my way through chronic fatigue and to now. And I had separate ones where I was doing my EFT, and I really was doing it daily, several times sometimes in the day, whenever some stuff was coming up. I was trying to work on it. And I was very lucky that I got introduced to it as quickly as I did. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So Mairi, you've gone through this amazing journey in your life with all that trauma, early life trauma, which, you know, we only covered a small part of it, but I think we got a flavour of it, and also finding that that really massive belief about getting it wrong when you were 4 years old, and then coming through, you know, your years and years of therapy, and finally finding EFT and Matrix Reimprinting, and then using that for your own health issues and helping you deal with stress. Now, I know as a mother, you know, you've learned so much about self-care, and now you actually help other women, I'm guessing specifically parents, to actually look at, you know, their own self-care as well. So, and you've got a beautiful strapline for what it is that you do. So would you just let us know a little bit more about what it is that you do to help people?
Okay, so where I found myself was, my business name is Change is Always Possible, and that's because I really believe there's hope now. You know, I honestly thought my life would never change and it would never get any better, and this was it, and it sucks. And I know that's not true now. And I really hope that I bring inspiration and hope to the world that things can change for people. And more specifically now, it's about radical self-care for mothers who can't cope, or anybody who can't cope, because I know what it's like to not cope before being a mum even. And the answers I found are in taking care of ourselves, and that is on every level. It's emotional, it's physical, it's mental, it's spiritual, and that's what I've had to do to recover from chronic fatigue. And you know, the more people who can reach a place where they're caring well for themselves, the more people can shine in the world, you know, and do their work and play their part in transforming our world. And that's what I want to be part of now. So yeah, getting to work with people to help them make those shifts and to start to know that they're worth caring about. Because I get that now. Where I used to beat myself up all the time and just think I was so awful and horrible and wrong, and you know, there was something fundamentally wrong with me. I don't feel like that now, and I know that I'm worth looking after. I mean, that is extraordinary. So when I do my self-care, it's not a tick box exercise anymore. It's because I know I will feel better if I do these things for myself. And when I feel better, everything in my world is better, you know, and I want more of that. And that's what I'd like for other people, you know, to have that chance. So
beautiful, beautiful. So if somebody was listening to this that really identifies with what you're saying there, Mairi, how would they find you?
So you can contact me through my website, which is www.changeisalwayspossible.com, or the same name at Facebook, changeisalwayspossible.com. You can find me there as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, we've got a little bit of an internet situation going on here, so so we got through it. We did it. Yay! So if you had one last thing that you would like to say, a message for Carl Dawson, creator of Matrix Reimprinting, what would you like to say to him?
Oh, I'd like to say, hooray! What a fantastic tool it is. I am so at home in Matrix. I love it. Having done all the inner child stuff. And then even when I just did EFT, I used to go into pictures quite a lot anyway. And so this whole concept of working in that way is really beautiful, and it really does transform. It's not like you actually become free, and that is such a gift. Yeah, wonderful gift that him creating this and sharing it so well. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mairi, for taking the time to do this interview with me, and I wish you a lot of success with your company. Change is always possible. I just love it. Well done, you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much.